Funding for this program was provided by Home Instead Senior Care, providing companionship and home care for seniors in Nebraska and around the world.
Turning a dream into reality. That's the story behind this program. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt, and this is Aging in Nebraska. Let me ask you something. What do you get when you combine experts in the field of gerontology and students in communications? A 60-minute television program designed with older adults in mind. During this hour, we promise to educate, inform, and inspire you about issues that eventually will impact all of us. Yes, I said all of us, because no one is immune to aging. And what better place to begin than with the aging process itself? Here to walk us through the journey of one couple who knows it all too well is Jake Buckingham.
Annette and Leo Fedman have been married for 45 years. At 84 years old, just trying to make it down the stairs of their Midtown Omaha home can be a tough challenge, but Leo takes it in stride.
In a way, we're lucky that he is able to do a certain amount of things by himself.
Leo Fedman has been through tough challenges before. The first time, almost his last, at the hands of a Nazi in a concentration camp.
I was in Auschwitz, and I was in 4 or 5 different labor camps.
Growing old was the last thing on his mind back then, but now it's a reality, and for the Fedman family, the aging process can be quite deceiving.
I don't feel old, but all of a sudden I realize I guess I am, because I'm starting to see friends dying and going through illnesses, falling and being injured. And
the term old may just be a state of mind to some people, but there are physical, mental, and psychological changes that occur in our bodies as we age. Dr. Julie Masters is an associate professor of gerontology at the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Aging is a process. It's not an event. It doesn't just happen all of a sudden, but rather it's something that happens over the life course. So even young people, in terms of their vision starts to change. We know that people in their middle years start to experience something called presbyopia, where their ability to focus on near objects becomes compromised. So we know aging is a process.
For the Fedman family, that process threw them a curveball a few years ago.
We thought in 2004, they thought that maybe he had Alzheimer's, but I don't think that he hasn't developed in that way. So we're lucky. We're very lucky.
Dr. Masters says don't be fooled by some of the conditions associated with aging.
Alzheimer's disease or dementia is not a normal process of aging. Significant memory loss is not a normal process of aging.
In fact, what might be surprising is the level of improvement we gain as we get older.
Things such as changes in intelligence. There's literature research to suggest that in terms of intelligence, there are areas or facets where people actually improve with age. Creativity is one of those examples, or wisdom is another example where we see older people actually improve.
Leo wants to keep that improvement and momentum going, so 2 days a week he spends his afternoon at SarahCare in Omaha. The adult daycare service is a home away from home for him. Carly Snyder is the executive director.
Getting out and socializing, being among people of, of all the different cognitive levels is very important. Even if you have somebody that walks around and might not know their name anymore, might not know exactly where they are, but if they can sit down and they can play cards or play bingo or just sit and talk to somebody, that's getting the stimulation in their mind going that they might not have if they're at home.
And that's the goal of the program, to help the elderly keep their independence by fostering an environment filled with stimulation. The SarahCare Center not only provides reading materials, but activities like arts and crafts to help stimulate thinking and activity in the minds of elderly patients. It's just another tool used to help people through the aging process. And so far, the program is right on target.
Most of the people that we have here currently still live at home. The goal is to keep them at home as long as possible and hopefully to deter the degeneration.
For Leo Fedman, growing old is the last challenge in his life. It's an experience that wouldn't be possible today if the rope the Nazis had used to hang him had not broken.
The Nazi called one Jew. I was standing on the bench. I said, kick the bench away from me. I won't do it. 3 Jews refused, and the Nazi was very upset. And he kicked the bench, and the rope broke, and I fell down. But no, I'm free and happy.
For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Jake Buckingham.
As the Fetmans navigate their way through the process, they must also navigate their way through the language. Everything from acronyms like ADLs, SNFs, LTC, and HIPAA to words like Medicare, Medicaid, and Alzheimer's disease. It's a maze that can boggle even the most agile minds, but Bettia Williamson found there are guides to help us through it all.
Senior can be defined differently depending on who you ask.
The term senior means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For AARP, our membership begins at the age of 50, which might seem like it's kind of a young starting point, but at about that age is when you start seeing some of the issues related to age discrimination in employment. You start seeing some issues related to charging higher premiums for health insurance. A lot of different programs have different types of eligibility related to age. Social Security, there's an early retirement at age 62 that a person can receive Social Security benefits. They have to accept a lower amount than they do at the full retirement age, and that full retirement age is changing.
A large number of acronyms and terms are used by aging professionals that may confuse older adults and their families. Understanding the language they use is key if you want to make informed decisions about care for older adults.
It's intimidating. The process is intimidating. It's, you could go to a website or a booklet and get started reading about it, but then really understanding it and processing it's a different matter. So I think that the system creates a lot of fear in seniors about what to expect and what they're really getting. So that's the biggest difficulty, is getting started and really having counselors they can talk to about how it really works, getting down to the practical, discussions about what this word means or what this coverage means.
We do publish a list of acronyms and what they do mean, but how some of these terms are used may differ. The term ADL, which is activity of daily living, different companies may use different activities to define what those ADLs are. So there's not one definition of ADL in terms of its application. So it's not just what we think those things mean, it's what the person who's using them, what they say they mean, is probably more important. And that's why we think it's really important for people to question and ask those people who are using those terms, what do they mean by them? How does it affect me?
Educating yourself about the terms and services offered to seniors is most important when caring for yourself or a loved one. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Bettia Williamson.
As we mentioned earlier, one of the terms that can become confusing in a hurry is Medicare. After all, there's A, B, C, D, Advantage, supplements. The list seems to go on and on. Joining us here in the studios to help simplify things a bit is Matt Santamaria.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We're joined by a special guest today, Sue Fredericks, the Executive Director for a very special organization, Volunteers Assisting Seniors. Before we get too much into the Medicare aspect of things, which is why you're here today, tell me a little bit about your organization. What do you do?
Be happy to. Our organization, Volunteers Assisting Seniors, has been around Omaha for about 30 years, just a little over 30 years. We use a network of volunteer senior citizens who help work with their peers to give them help and advice with Medicare counseling. I help them file for a homestead exemption, which offers them property tax relief. We have a volunteer conservator program, and we have a legal referral program.
But you do have at least indirect ties to Medicare. Talk about the correlation between Medicare and your organization.
Our organization is also the regional SHIP representative, and SHIP is the Senior Health Insurance Information Program. And this particular program is part of Medicare, and our purpose is to educate seniors on their benefits and their options that are available through Medicare.
Now, I think Medicare is a very interesting topic because I think if you went around and polled people in the state, a lot of people would know the general concept of Medicare, but as far as what exactly it is, I'm not sure too many people really think about that until they're getting up into that age. But tell me a little bit about what Medicare is.
You're exactly right. Everyone's heard of Medicare, but until you get to be into your 60s, you don't give it a whole lot of thought. Medicare is a program that's been around since 1965. It provides seniors over the age of 65 accessibility to health care insurance. It started with your Part A, which was hospital coverage, Part B, which is your medical coverage, and then over the years they've added Part C and Part D.
Once you turn 65, are you instantly eligible for this, or is there more to it than that?
It's a good question. If you've already been receiving Social Security benefits, you are automatically enrolled into Medicare. Social Security is the entity that actually gets you hooked into the Medicare system. If you haven't already been on Social Security, then as you approach 65, it's up to you to make that contact with the Social Security office.
How about out-of-pocket costs? I know that's a big concern for the elderly. Is that something that you'll have to deal with Medicare?
There are costs that go with Medicare. Your Part A, which is what you've paid into all of your working life, generally for most people is free. Part B, usually about a $96.40 charge per month for that particular premium. If you're at a certain income level, it may be a little bit higher. There's also, for your drug portion, there are premiums that go with the drug portion of Medicare, as well as costs for your medicines when you go to the pharmacy.
How about your overall opinion? You know Medicare so well. Do you like the way it's being distributed with the elderly right now? You think it's a very positive thing?
Medicare offers health insurance where seniors most likely would not have access to it. So for that, it's great. It's also extremely confusing. And for a population that may have some issues, depending on how old they're getting with their ability to handle these things, it can be very difficult for them to navigate the system.
And what's the age range that someone should start looking into these Medicare benefits?
I would advise that you start researching 3 months to 6 months prior to your 65th birthday. You are able to sign up for Medicare 3 months before your birthday, the month of your birthday, and 3 months after. So depending on when you want the coverage to kick in, you need to start looking into it because you will have several options.
Sue Fredericks, Executive Director, Volunteers Assisting Seniors. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Kathy, back to you.
Thank you, Matt. Well, as with anything, taking a proactive approach to the aging process can save time, money, and perhaps even your life. As Lacey Penrose reports, when it comes to nutrition and exercise, the steps we take now can prevent serious problems in the future.
It's 8 a.m. at Prairie Life, and Marsha Limbo is getting ready for her next water aerobics class for the day. It's something she's felt passionate about for the last 20 years that she's been doing it.
I would say probably 75% of my classes are senior citizens. Overall in the club, I would say average age is 35 to 45.
The senior citizens, or prime times as Marsha calls them, come to our class with a variety of ailments.
We have a lot of fibromyalgia students because it really benefits them in warm water. Yeah, and same with arthritis. You can move the joint through water and warm water better. It really helps the joints.
If you were to ask her what she loves the most about her line of work, she could easily answer you.
It's my students. It's a big social thing for especially my seniors. You know, they might have lost a spouse, and this gives them somewhere to go every day.
For those who aren't so inclined to drive to a gym, or those who live in retirement communities, like those at Remington Heights, there are other ways to stay fit as well.
We have walking clubs, which not only is the physical walking, but it's that socializing. We have some Tai Chi offered here, some moving and grooving, which is to music. If it's sitting and moving in your chair or standing and maybe working with some instruments. We also have an exercise room upstairs.
To be healthy can be defined in many ways. Some consider it physical health that keeps us going strong. Others might believe mental health plays a stronger role.
The Jewish Community Center has an excellent workout facility, and we provide transportation there so that, again, they can work out at a great facility there, keep in contact with some friends, and still be home here with others.
Some good advice can be beneficial when it comes to keeping our loved ones healthy.
Don't ever stop moving. That's the key right there, is the key. And nutritionally, you need a lot more vegetables and fruits, and push away from the table. That's my favorite statement to my seniors, is push away from the table and get up and move.
Nutrition and exercise is very important for these senior citizens. Keeping a social circle close with family and friends is also very important.
Great story, Lacey. Anytime we can talk about enhancing the quality of an older adult's life, we have done a really good thing.
Absolutely.
Now, at the end of your story, you mentioned close social circles as being somewhat important. Tell us more about that.
Yes, both ladies that I had talked to in my interviews had really stressed the importance of keeping a close social circle of family and friends to enhance the quality of life from day-to-day activities.
Excellent. And to reiterate, you do not have to be living at home to live a healthy lifestyle.
No, absolutely not. Many people move to these communities and independent facilities to keep themselves going every day, and having someone around really helps that.
Excellent. And again, nicely done.
Thanks.
Lacey Penrose reports. Okay, so here's a question for you. What is the fastest growing concern among older adults? The unsettling answer when we come back. And later in this program, the growing demand for home health. But first, a look at the faces of aging. It is estimated that between 1 and 2 million Americans over the age of 65 have fallen victim to this at one time or another. As Tone Doan reports, it's called elder abuse, and unfortunately, it's on the rise.
It's a relatively unknown problem that affects tens of thousands of elderly Americans every year. It happens in their own homes, their relatives' homes, and even facilities responsible for their care. As elders become more physically frail, they're less able to stand up to intimidation and fight back.
Tens of thousands of seniors across the nation are being abused, harmed in some substantial way, often from people responsible for their care.
Many people are abused during life, but when we talk about elder abuse, it's usually the more frail, older adult that's taken advantage of. And that can be physically, psychologically, neglect, exploited.
Abuse of elders takes on many different forms, some involving intimidation or threats against them. Some involve neglect, while others involve financial fraud.
If you were to walk in to the home of your grandmother or your grandparents, it would be very difficult to spot it right off the bat. You'd have to be with them a series of time. Then you might notice that they become very nervous, reclusive, kind of not wanting to talk. There'd be a change, but it's not going to be something you're going to spot on a 5-minute visit. It's going to take several visits, and then you're going to notice that they're not the same, and there's a difference. And what's going on? And maybe I should investigate a little bit, and maybe I should spend and alert some other members in the family, because you can't do it alone. You need an organized approach to it.
Some of the more common types are physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, which are meant to make the elders feel weak and scared of their abusers. Signs like bruises and mood changes are indications. Others include neglect and financial exploitation, which are two of the most common types endured by elders.
While it's important for elders to report the abuse that they endure, many seniors choose not to report the abuse even when they're able to.
Many fear retaliation, while others believe that if they do turn in their abusers, no one will take care of them.
Okay, here's the situation. You're an elderly person. Maybe you have some limitations. It could be mental, or it could be physical, or it could be both. And you have a family member coming in, and they are supposedly helping you. And this is your family. Would you report your daughter, your son, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your niece, your nephew? I don't think so.
So how big is the problem? No one really knows. Relatively few cases are ever identified, as elders are often reluctant to report the mistreatment. Experts estimate that only 1 in 6 cases or fewer are ever reported, which means that very few seniors who have been abused get the help they need. So how can someone prevent elder abuse? By taking some precautions. Make sure your financial and legal affairs are in order. Keep in touch with family and friends. And finally, speak up if you suspect abuse.
And Tone joins us now. One of the things that you said in your story, which is a great thing for people to know, is that we should all be speaking out more about this issue. But for the victims, that's often easier said than done.
Yeah, I think it's because they're afraid. When elders become more physically frail as they grow older, they become more dependent on their caretakers. And that presents a problem, especially when your caretaker is your abuser. So it creates a catch-22 for the person. They have to kind of decide, do I put up with the abuse, or do I report this person and not get help? So, and what's also sad is that the majority of the abusers are generally the family members of the elders. So,
for those people who do find the courage to pick up the phone, what number do they call, Tone?
Well, in Nebraska, you can call Adult Protective Services. Their number is 1-800-652-1999.
Okay, thank you very, very much. All right, from first calls to another first, ever heard of Fall Intervention Reaching Seniors Together? Or yes, FIRST. It's an online resource of useful tips to educate and inform older adults about prevention. But before you log on there, we encourage you to check out this next story by Julia Bertino.
This 61-year-old nursing home employee knows all about falls and how much effect they can have on a person's life.
Animals that walk in front of you, like we got animals and they're always running in front of us, and you gotta watch for that. And we don't have no railings on the steps, so you gotta be careful when you walk down them. And when it's wet outside, should have shoes that are skid resistant.
Robert knows that there are some things to avoid to prevent falling. Uneven walkways cause him the biggest problems. When Robert had a fall last winter, he also stopped shoveling his own snow, showing the effect a fall can have on daily life.
Well, I fell one time coming out of the house and hurt my leg and my arm, and it takes a while for it to heal when you get older.
When an older person falls, it doesn't just affect them, it also takes a toll on their families. This 21-year-old spends every day caring for her 63-year-old father.
I take him to and from work every day. I take him to the grocery store, to his doctor's appointments.
She has had to make changes in her life, as well as her father's. She takes many precautions so that her father doesn't have a lot of life-impacting falls.
Pretty much we had to put handles in the showers and around the house for him to help him get up and move around and bump into when he walk in, move the coffee table, move everything to the walls in his bedroom so he doesn't have the risk of bumping into his dressers or tripping.
The risk of falling is high in older people, and there are a few things to watch out for in and outside of the home. Keeping a watchful eye and using aid when needed can help reduce the risk of falling. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Julia Bertino.
Falls are just one way to rob an individual of his or her independence. A loss of motor skills is another. Just ask anyone who's ever had to take away the keys from their aging parents or grandparents. As Capri Walton reports, it's difficult, heartbreaking, but in many cases, the right thing to do.
The process of aging can come with some major difficulties. A certain day-to-day task, such as driving, can become a risk to both the senior driver and fellow cars on the road. 77-year-old Evelyn Compte of Bellevue voiced some difficulties faced as a driver.
Sometimes nighttime driving bothers me, especially if it's on a wet road.
Well, there's so many more cars on the road than there used to be, you know, and everybody darting around. I always wonder if I'm the only one going the speed limit.
One of the things that we're seeing more is where you have a confusion issue, such as we've had people that have actually run into buildings because they thought that they were actually pressing on the brake when they were actually pressing on the gas.
Bill Mulheron, who is the Vice President of Programs at the National Safety Council, gives us some statistics on senior drivers.
A lot of our more senior population grew up at a time when a lot of people didn't wear seatbelts on a regular basis. They do tend to become in more incidents per miles driven. And if you were to chart out on a graph the number of incidents per miles driven amongst drivers of all ages, it would look like a big smile, so to speak. You'd see the most number of incidents per mile driven amongst very young drivers, 16 to 24, and again amongst very older drivers, say above 75.
When the senior in your family begins having issues with driving, luckily here in Omaha at the Allegiant Health Center, there is a driver rehabilitation center located at Emmanuel Hospital. Jenny Spiegel helps senior drivers rehab their driving skills at Allegiant.
But essentially what we do is we have them come in and we do some work here in the clinic where we look at vision, visual perceptual skills, ability to multitask information. The tests that we're providing for the people are appropriate for driving itself. Like I said, we do the simulator, and then the cars are probably the best determination of skill level. I have a brake on my side of the vehicle. Our vehicles are modified with low-tech adaptations, so if someone has had a stroke and one side of their body doesn't work, I can teach them to drive with one hand. I can put an adaptation on so they can drive with their left foot. If neither leg is working anymore, I can teach them how to drive with hand controls. And if they can't even transfer out of a wheelchair, I can pull them up into a van in their wheelchair and still have them go out and drive.
So when seniors are no longer capable of driving, transportation is sought out elsewhere. Daniel Wolf reports.
There often comes a time for the aged when driving one's own vehicle is no longer an option. For such people, navigating busy streets can be done by relying on typical forms of public transportation, such as Omaha's metro area transit buses. For many elderly Nebraska residents, though, a more personalized form of transportation is required to get from place to place. That is where services such as the City of Papillion Senior Shuttle come in handy. Recreation Superintendent for the City of Papillion, Tim Moran, explains just how the system works.
Well, it provides a way for the seniors to get around town. A lot of them don't drive, a lot of them don't have family members here, so we provide the service 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We kind of have a set schedule where we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday to medical appointments in Papillion and the surrounding areas. Tuesday, Thursday, we mainly do shopping in the Papillion area and medical appointments in Papillion. And then, of course, we take people here to our senior center. That senior center is open Tuesday through Thursday, and we bring them here for lunch, and we also give them free rides here and back home.
86-year-old Bellevue resident Jan Jacquard relies on a similar shuttle system provided by the City of Bellevue. She enjoys not having to sit at bus stops or walk near busy city streets.
They pick you up at your door, and they drop you right at the door where you want to go. And when they bring you home, they drop you right at your door. So they're very good about that.
Ms. Jacquard admits that although she appreciates the service, it's not without its flaws.
But it's not, like I say, it's not advertised enough. A lot of people don't know about it. And I think they'd do more business if it was advertised.
Immediate suburbs of Omaha are not the only parts of the state that offer the aged personalized transportation. The Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging, or the ENOA, offers seniors living in rural counties and towns a shuttle service as well.
We have a rural transportation program which is available for individuals that live in rural Douglas, Sarpy, Cass, Washington, and Dodge counties. That's available for anybody, no matter what their age or criteria. We transport to doctor's appointments, to business appointments, for shopping, to the airport, just a variety of things. There is a cost for that program, and it's based upon miles traveled.
There is less in the way of such services, though, when it comes to bigger cities such as Omaha.
I am on a task force in Omaha, and right now we are working on better resources for inner-city transportation for seniors.
Although seniors traveling these Omaha streets may have more limited options than those living in rural areas, the ENOA says they are just one grant away from widely expanding transportation services here in Omaha. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Daniel Wolf.
Improved transportation can certainly pave the way toward greater independence, including providing a way for older adults to get to and from a job. That's right, as Nick Bohan reports, seniors who need to go back to work are finding hope in a very special program.
With the economy in a slump and technology always advancing, some seniors might find it more difficult to find a job. The Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging, or ENOA, offers a job employment program that helps seniors create a resume, as well as separate computer courses to get them up to speed on today's computer technology. ENOA job specialist Michelle Dorner says through their computer training courses, seniors are taught the basics, and through advanced courses can become more familiar with common computer software.
We kind of start out with what is a mouse, how do you use a mouse, what the different components of the monitor are, what copy paste is, what click and drag is. And then once they get that class, then there's an advanced Word class where we teach saving files into folders, how to get your documents organized. And then each class builds on the next class.
With today's job market not being very stable as it is, Dorner says it's taking even longer than before for seniors to find jobs.
It used to take like maybe 12 months or so to find a job. Now it's taking anywhere from 18, 24, 36 months to find a job. And that's, putting in applications every week, 2 to 4, 2 to 6 applications every week. Because of the internet, people can be more selective now, and you have to make that resume stand out.
The ENOA has a number of locations throughout Nebraska, from Omaha to Lincoln all the way to Kearney. With life changing the way it is through technology and new ideas, it's a good thing we have places like ENOA to help us out. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Mick Bohan.
So where are we from an unemployment standpoint? In July of 2009, there were 2 million individuals 55 and over out of work, an increase of 88% since July of 2008. During that same time frame, the number of unemployed workers age 75 and older increased by 66%. And if that weren't bad enough, the number of low-income, older individuals at risk for homelessness has increased by 140% since January 2008. 64% of older workers cite financial need as the reason they continue working. They need income to help support their families, pay for health care, and maintain health insurance, among other expenses. And when they do lose their jobs, they are less likely to get another one quickly and experience greater earning losses than younger workers. Enter an organization called Experience Works, and our next guest, who joins us all the way from Cozad, Nebraska. Her name is Barbara Wagner, and she is the Employment and Training Coordinator for the agency. Barbara, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Aging in Nebraska.
Thank you.
Let's start by asking you just what is Experience Works?
Experience Works is an organization that was started in 1965 by Lady Bird Johnson. And she had this big thing about beautifying the roadways. And she had all the older people volunteering and decided that they should get paid for helping do this. So the organization is funded under the Older Americans Act of 1965. We are a nonprofit funded by the Department of Labor, and we deal strictly with persons over the age of 55, low income, who have lost their employment, their jobs, and need to get retrained to enter new employment areas.
Great. And how did you become involved in all of this?
I was that person. I lost my job and applied, and they decided I had a gift of gab, and they hired me. So I travel 19 states, 19 counties in central Nebraska, and deal with the impoverished, the disabled, the hardest of the hard to place.
Give us an example of someone with whom you've worked recently.
Worked with a homeless gentleman who had lost his job, therefore he lost his home, lost his car, went into a homeless shelter. We interviewed him, put him on our program, and in 3 months he now has an apartment, working, saving money to get a car. We've put him into computer classes, and hopefully by the end of the year or by the end of March of 2010, he'll be employed again.
What a rewarding job you have.
It is. It's a marvelous job.
Now, who are your partners in all of this?
We work a lot with the state agencies. We work a lot with vocational rehab. We work with Goodwill Industries. We work with all the workforce development offices. They're our biggest feed for participants. Those are the major keys, and a lot of word of mouth.
One of the things we're really trying to do with this program, Barbara, is educate and inform people about older adult issues. There is a perception, whether we like it or not, about older adults and the workforce. What is it, first of all, talk about that and tell us what it is that you're doing personally and professionally to try to change that.
The first thing we're doing is upgrading their job skills. 90% of them have never touched a computer. They say they haven't touched a computer, but they email grandkids, and that's computer work. So we put them in classes at community colleges or special training. We upgrade their skills. We place them in what we call a host agency, which would be a nonprofit agency in our area that provides training for them, and most important, provides them current references. Because some of these people have been out of work for 2 to 20 years. And so they stay at this agency up to most of the time about a year, and we're working with them all along, and we're doing job searches with them. And so that's our part in the organization, is to keep them moving forward and to give them that self-esteem that is so important.
Outstanding. Now, for folks who want to get in touch with you and learn more about this, what information can you give them? Phone number, website?
I can give them, it's experienceworks.org on the web, and we do not have an 800 number. My phone number, and I have no problem giving it out, and I will put them in touch with whoever they need to be in touch with. It's area code 308-784-3844.
Wonderful. Barbara Wagner with Experience Works. Thank you so much for being here. Much continued success to you.
Thank you.
And to the folks with whom you work.
Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. Moving right along now to one of the fastest growing levels of care. It's called home health care. There are actually 2 types. More on that when we come back. Also ahead, one of the best kept secrets in Nebraska and nationwide for that matter. For now, another look at the faces of aging. It is almost a guarantee we will all need some sort of assistance or care when we get older. The question is, who will be there to provide the programs and services? If you think you're set, you may want to think again. As Chuck Hill reports, it's tough enough for folks now, let alone as the population ages, especially in counties west of Fremont.
One of the facets of gerontology is special senior care. An issue that the field of care faces is a lack of providers. Dr. Lynn Hawley, an assistant professor at UNO, feels the reason is financial.
Wages are very low. Conditions of work can be very, very strenuous, very dangerous.
Jennifer Kelly, a certified nursing assistant and provider at Brookstone Home Senior Care, agrees the work is strenuous.
They need to do something because with us being short, it's just it takes such a toll on you because you're just lifting so much more because of the shortage, and the residents aren't getting the attention that they deserve.
The tasks of a senior care provider is demanding as well as time-consuming.
The people who are doing the actual hands-on care, and consider how this would matter to someone who needs a type of assistance, who needs assistance to get up and get dressed in the morning, needs assistance maybe with bathing, needs assistance to get any preparation of nutritious meals.
But what does this mean for rural Nebraska senior citizens who can't get the care needed?
I guess we kind of all have our own sufferings to undergo. It's true in terms of highly specialized acute care. People from the rural hospitals generally have to be sent to Omaha for treatment.
Jennifer Kelly says there are incentives to working out west in rural Nebraska.
They're offering, what I've heard at least, is they're offering to pay off student loans, to just give you, like, pay for your tuition if you're in school and you want to be a CNA out there. They're trying to get people out there by offering to do that, and I don't know how well it's working.
With incentives in place for students to work in rural Nebraska in geriatrics, along with raised awareness, hopefully this will increase the number of providers so that seniors in need can take advantage of this and live a long, fruitful, and happy rest of their life. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Chuck Hill.
Living a long, fruitful, and happy life is what we all want for older adults, including those working in home health care. Stephanie Bachman looks at an industry that has virtually exploded over the past few years to meet the growing demand of aging adults who don't want to move.
One of the hardest things to do is to convince mom or dad to move out of their home. With in-home health care, they have the option to stay.
They're in their own environment. They seem to just thrive better. When you take them out of their environment and you disrupt their daily routine and you put them into an assisted living or a skilled or a memory support, they're now confined to a certain small area. It's not their area. They can bring in some of their belongings, but their belongings are very limited.
Vicki Kugler's mom suffers from dementia. She has been with Home Instead for over a year.
We thought she was going to probably be kind of stable and be kind of the same. We've found since we moved her to the home situation, she's improved a lot. She talks more, she interacts with people more, so we've seen some positive changes we didn't expect.
The caregivers prepare meals, clean, and keep her company, among many other things.
They also keep us very aware of any changes or anything, suggestions they might have, so they're kind of a source of information. They update us on, we noticed this, or, she'd ask about this.
Fred Grossman said that keeping a journal was part of the caregiver's training.
We keep what's called the caregiver journal, and they'll document what takes place on a day-to-day basis. Are they forgetting things? Are they leaving things on? Are they repeating things? Do they have an obsessive-compulsive disorder? And this is all part of the caregiver training that they're used and get specialized in to pick up these little traits that family members aren't around, the member themselves. They may know something's going on, something may not be right, but our caregivers are there to make that notification or make that information known to the family members.
If there's a need for medical care, companies like the Visiting Nurses Association are able to help.
Caring for patients with cardiac problems, rehabilitation, physical therapy, speech therapy, as well as care, personal care assistance and homemaker services that an individual might need, after they're recovering from an illness or accident, to help them remain safe, secure, and rehabilitate in the comfort of their own home.
More people are choosing in-home health care because of the variety of services that come along with it. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Stephanie Bachman.
Having to consider home health care is just one sign that a loved one is aging and changing, which is never easy for them or their loved ones to accept. In fact, it can literally tear families apart. Here with more on what we call family dynamic is Melinda Monahan. Melinda?
Tia Schoenfeld's husband Bill has Parkinson's disease. She is his caregiver. She is the primary care provider for Bill, and she's here to share her story about how she and her family have dealt with the pressures of tending for him. Tia, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
If you could just tell us a little bit about when your husband was first diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Sure. My husband was diagnosed 12 years ago. He was 48 years old. Our two children were Dana is in 6th grade. My son Stuart was in 3rd grade. We discovered this because his profession was a choir organist director, and he was finding difficulty in doing some of his chord progressions on the organ. Went to a neurologist, got a diagnosis. I said, we need a second opinion, and he went to another neurologist. He concurred, and he was diagnosed. And then we started the journey of learning how we cope with change, and part of that was utilizing the medical community here in Omaha. And if I were to say what is the single most important thing for a family to do, is to get in and get a diagnosis, an accurate diagnosis, so you can utilize those services that the medical community will provide. He was in a number of drug studies and has utilized the team at UNMC and Creighton to help him better understand the disease process, and for myself, how to utilize the resources of counseling and respite. And also, as simple as this sounds, the equipment that you can use to help maintain the quality of your life. He has not the resting tremors, he has stiffness and freezing. One of the things that he utilizes for that particular symptom of Parkinson's for himself is a laser beam on his cane. And that beam, every time he puts it down on the floor, lights up, and that cues him to move his leg, because that's what is happening with him, is he's not receiving the dopamine to say, move. And
could you tell us a little bit about how your son and daughter, how they first reacted when they found out about their dad's disease?
Dana, I think, managed pretty well. My son, who was younger, of course, became very saddened by that. And so we utilized counseling for both families. I also think the positive side of the outcome for this disease, because you always have to look for positive outcomes in this process, is that my daughter is going to become a language speech pathologist in a specialty in swallowing disorders. And that's one of the things that Parkinson's patients, as they age, will develop. My son, I think, has learned how to manage stress, stress that he even created for himself sometimes. And they now are very attentive to their father, and I think that makes our family stronger.
And if you could give our viewers some advice that are dealing with maybe not Parkinson's disease, but something similar, like another life-altering disease, what are some things that you would give them for advice?
First off, I would say, again, if you suspect that there's something wrong, that there's something out of the ordinary, go see a doctor. You'd be amazed how many people will procrastinate and make excuses. Second, utilize those programs that are, whether it be community-based, whether it be faith-based, that will keep you supported. And don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be intimidated to ask questions. And find life after a diagnosis. And the thing that I want to say about aging is a state of mind, and we all age, and how effectively we do that is by how well we connect with those people that are around us.
Thank you so much, Tia, for joining us today. We really enjoyed hearing your story. I think it'll help a lot of viewers overcome obstacles that they face with diseases in their family members. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melinda. Well, as Tia Schoenfeld pointed out, even if your loved one doesn't need 24-hour care, the stress of being a primary caregiver can take its toll. The key, Katie Murphy tells us, is finding relief for yourself by taking a temporary time out, or something we call respite.
My dad just died March 15th, and prior to that he had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
The goal of respite care is to allow family caregivers to take care of their loved ones for as long as possible in an at-home environment.
That's the one thing, if we would have known about respite care sooner, you know, a lot of the struggles that we had and the anguish the first 2 years, we kind of could have avoided.
Respite is about the family caregiver. It's preventative care so that they do have time to lower their stress and to be able to do what they need to do to still enjoy life.
Jane Stratton takes care of her husband who has Alzheimer's. As a caregiver, she uses respite care to get time for herself.
I will do a better job with what I have to do at home if I can fulfill me.
No matter how much you love your parents or how much you just have to get a break from them because it just really starts working on you. After all, you know, you've already changed your lifestyle around, which, like I said, there's absolutely no problem.
But the biggest benefit to the person being cared for, and something that families need to keep in mind, is that the #1 reason for premature out-of-home placement is caregiver burnout. It's so important that the family members and friends ensure that family caregiver is getting a break so they can continue caring for their loved one.
Gail Duda and her family took care of her mother-in-law for 10 months before she passed away. For Gail, respite care was the best way to keep her mother-in-law around family.
Myself and 3 of our 4 children were totally committed to her staying at home instead of going into a nursing home. And we were willing to do whatever it took. And the respite care people made it easier for us to do it.
The Nebraska Respite Care Resource Center here at the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging on 42nd and Center provides resources for family caregivers looking for help through respite and other in-home care programs.
I think it definitely gave her life back for several more years here, and we're able to keep her with us and enjoy her. So yeah, we couldn't have done it without the help of respite care.
Karen Berna took care of her mother until she passed away. Karen was fortunate enough to have set up respite care early and used it after she herself got sick.
I think that respite is somewhat, maybe a little bit of a hidden secret, and I would like to be able to contribute a little bit in saying that, you know, the help is there, and you just have to reach out there and don't be afraid to make that first call.
We all want to take care of our loved one. Some families make the promise that they'll never place their parents or their spouse in a facility. If you want to make that promise come true, take care of yourself, and the way you do that is by having time to be able to take care of yourself that you get through respite.
Respite care has a bad reputation of being a hidden secret, something most people who care for a loved one don't know about until it's too late. With respite care, a caregiver is able to keep their stress level down and care for the loved one for as long as possible.
Thanks, Katie. So how do individuals go about learning more about this? In other words, where do they go for help?
If someone is actually looking for help as a caregiver, their best first step in Nebraska is the Respite Care Resource Center. From there, on their website, you can actually learn exactly what exactly respite care is and the types of services they can expect to find.
Great advice. Thank you, Katie, very much. All right, so caregiving not easy under any circumstance, let alone at the end of a loved one's life. Fortunately, there's help available here too, in the form of something called hospice. Kong Yin explains.
86-year-old Bill Artis lives in West Omaha. He has rheumatoid arthritis and is now receiving hospice care as a stay-home patient from the Visiting Nurse Association.
A very nice nurse calls on us once a week, or calls on me once a week, and checks my health and asks if we have any problems. They've prescribed medicine, and they're just there, and that's a comfort.
Mr. Artis's wife, Harriet Artis, is his primary caregiver.
The head can raise up.
With equipment furnished in their house by the VNA, like this hospital bed, Mrs. Otis is able to handle most of the routine care for her husband.
This is the Medtronic receiver that monitors his pacemaker, and that is the VNA lifeline that he wears around his neck. If he had fallen this afternoon and I wasn't here, he could press that button.
A patient can also be admitted to a hospice facility if necessary.
The building behind me is one of Omaha's hospices. In there, patients can receive a more intensive care than that they can receive at home.
Hospice is a philosophy of care, and it's looking to support people who are diagnosed with a terminal illness, people who have physicians who have said that terminal illness is going to bring about their death within a period of about 6 months if that illness progresses at an expected rate.
The main objective of hospice care is to keep patients comfortable during their final stage of life and afford them the best quality of life that's possible.
Any one of the hospice team members would be doing far more than just dealing with the physical symptoms, but it would also be assisting with those fear questions, spiritual questions, psychosocial support issues.
Another important component of hospice care is the spiritual support for the patients and their loved ones.
Our primary focus would always be on the resident and their disease process and their comfort, but hospice speaks to wanting to address the needs of the family unit surrounding that person.
Our major concern for the hospice community is public education and awareness.
So often that I sit at this very table with a potential new resident or a potential resident's family members and hear from that family that they just learned about hospice this morning, and now today they're being sent to hospice house and they're doing all this learning, getting all this information and gathering this all in a very short period of time.
Some common misconceptions about hospice need to be dispelled.
And hospice isn't giving up on folks, which might be thought of by people. Hospice is not ending life early. Truly, hospice is not extending life either. Hospice is simply supporting a person's life for as long as that person is going to be able to live.
Ruth Muchmore is one of Nebraska's earliest hospice founders.
I always felt that people should be given a death that they could live with, that a family could live with.
In Nebraska, there are 45 hospice facilities, and the care is paid by Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, and for military members and families, a benefit called TRICARE. For Aging in Nebraska, I'm Kang Yin.
Over the past hour, we have covered a variety of topics that impact older adults and their families. Everything from the aging process to elder abuse to family dynamics. And we're not done yet. Aging in Nebraska is just one of many steps we need to take to educate and inform folks, with the hope that we will all start to take a more proactive approach to growing old. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, aging is mandatory. How we go about it is up to us.
Funding for this program was provided by Home Instead Senior Care, providing companionship and home care for seniors in Nebraska and around the world.